I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes. And then, when they kind of went on their first run, it kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why. But the offense, I think, for us, it starts on defense. And we, struggled, scouting report wise. We struggled personnel. We struggled to do what the coaches asked of us. And then, overall, they just played with more energy and effort, and, those are the things that just can't happen.
Stephanie White threw her entire team under the bus after the Fever's humiliating 80-61 loss to the expansion Valkyries, and fans aren't having it. This wasn't just another loss, it was Caitlin Clark's return from injury. The Fever had just taken down powerhouses like the Aces and the Lynx, and instead of building on that momentum, they got embarrassed on their home court. But rather than take accountability for questionable rotations, zero defensive adjustments, and head-scratching coaching calls, White went to the mic and blamed everyone but herself, calling out effort, chemistry, and focus, while conveniently ignoring the fact that she's the one holding the clipboard. Leadership is about owning failure as much as success, and when the lights were brightest, Stephanie chose to deflect instead of lead. So now the question has to be asked, is this really the leadership the Fever needs, or is it time for someone else to step up and steer the ship?
But we have to talk about Stephanie White getting in the presser and actually going off on the Indiana Fever. But it's something about it, man, because although, yeah, I get it, she was talking about the players, and I understand that because she was right, she also need to take a little bit of accountability on her own as well.
Picture this. Just last week, the Fever were on top of the world, hoisting their first Commissioner's Cup trophy and looking every bit like a team that had finally found its rhythm and identity. They dismantled Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces, making one of the league's top stars look pedestrian, then followed it up by outplaying Nafisa Collier and the Minnesota Lynx, showing they could run with anyone. The chemistry was electric, the confidence was rising, and for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. Everything was clicking, until it all suddenly wasn't.
Caitlin, you've had career high school, college, pros. You never were really injured before and had to sit out. Now it's been twice. How do you mentally go through that part besides the physical rehab while you were sitting out? How do you cope with it at home and killing time?
It's honestly been hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It's difficult, going to prepare for games, but knowing you're not going to be playing in them, and I think just reminding myself of, my abilities and what I've been able to do in this league, even though I've been sitting out, and, just trying to be a great teammate, be a great leader, even though I've been on the bench, and serve my teammates in that way.
And then came July 9th. Caitlin Clark's return from her groin injury was supposed to be a celebration, a triumphant moment after missing 5 games, including the Commissioner's Cup championship, which the team impressively won without her. The anticipation was sky-high, with fans eager to see how the Fever would look with their superstar back in the lineup. Gainbridge Fieldhouse was sold out, buzzing with excitement and ready for fireworks. The energy before tip-off was electric, a perfect setup for a statement game. But what followed shocked everyone.
I think it's given me great perspective on what other people have gone through their career, and like you said, I've been fortunate enough to never really been injured, and I play a lot of minutes usually, so I think it gives me good perspective, not only for people that are injured, but some of your teammates that may not be getting the minutes that they want to get, and I think I can use that experience to be a better leader, to be a better teammate, but also it's challenged me mentally. I think, it's really hard to stop and go, and especially when you're not feeling your best. So just trying to get my body as healthy as I can be and remain confident in myself, and then do everything I can once I step back out on the court to help.
Instead, fans watched in disbelief as their team was demolished 80-61 by an expansion team that, on paper, shouldn't even be competitive yet. The Golden State Valkyries played like seasoned veterans, while the Fever looked completely lost and disoriented. It marked the second time the Valkyries had beaten Indiana this season, but this one hit differently. This was supposed to be their moment, their homecoming, their statement game. Clark's return was meant to ignite the offense, but instead, the team shot a dismal 31% from the field and just 6 of 27 from beyond the arc. The crisp, confident offense that had powered them through their championship run suddenly looked broken. Ball movement stalled, shots clanked off the rim, and the rhythm that once defined their play was nowhere to be found.
Lay lays that one in. Look at the attack, how quickly up the floor. And Clark hits a 3. The Fever
team scored just 19 points combined in the second and fourth quarters, 19 points across 2 full quarters of professional basketball. In the second half alone, they surrendered 10 offensive rebounds, giving the Valkyries endless second and third chances. Every offensive possession felt like a grind, and every defensive stop seemed out of reach. The electric anticipation in Gainbridge Fieldhouse quickly morphed into stunned silence. Disappointment spread like wildfire as fans watched their team unravel. Even Caitlin Clark didn't sugarcoat it afterward, saying, "I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes, and then, when they kind of went on their first run, it kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why. It's every single person on our team, and, nobody played well today. And you should look yourself in the mirror and find ways where you can get better and come back to practice tomorrow and then play again on Friday." This wasn't just a bad night, it was a complete system failure, exposing cracks beneath the surface. The team that looked unstoppable just a week ago suddenly forgot how to play together. But the biggest surprise came after the final buzzer, when Coach Stephanie White stepped to the mic, and the blame game began.
It's every single person on our team, and, nobody played well today. And, you should look yourself in the mirror and find ways where you can get better and, come back to practice tomorrow and then play again on Friday.
Here's where things get really frustrating. Stephanie White made coaching decisions that left fans and analysts scratching their heads, none more baffling than her choice to bench Lexi Hull. Hull had been one of the Fever's most consistent defenders and a reliable three-point threat all season long. She wasn't just holding her own, she was thriving, serving as the perfect complement to Caitlin Clark's playstyle by spacing the floor and locking down opposing guards. But for reasons that remain unclear, White tossed that chemistry out the window. Hull was pulled from the starting lineup, and the result was a glaring lack of perimeter defense and floor spacing that left the offense stagnant and the defense exposed.
I think collectively we didn't do a good job at taking away the stuff that their team likes to do and making them do things they don't want to do. We didn't do a good job of that. We also gave up some timely offensive rebounds that they do a great job of kicking it out, getting open looks, getting open threes late in the game. I think it really just comes down to effort and us not locking in mentally and following the scouting report.
Instead, she started Ari McDonald at point guard, who was the spark plug of the team while Clark was away. This forced Clark to play off ball at small forward instead of her natural position. How can you not let a generational player play the position she excels in the most? Clark is a point guard. That's where she makes magic happen. That's where she controls the game. White took that away from her.
To talk about Stephanie White getting in the presser and actually going off on the Indiana Fever, but it's something about it, man, because although, I get it, she was talking about the players, and I understand that because she was right, she also needed to take a little bit of accountability on her own as well.
The offense became stagnant almost immediately. Clark couldn't find her rhythm, and the whole unit looked clunky and confused. Without the ball in her hands, her impact was minimized. Instead of orchestrating the offense, she was running around setting screens, completely misused for a player of her caliber. Coach Stephanie White's system forced Clark into a role that didn't fit her strengths, and the result was an offense that lacked flow, identity, and purpose. One analyst bluntly put it, "It looked like they didn't even practice this starting lineup." And honestly, it showed.
Do you like about Caitlin and Ari starting the game together and Lexi coming off the bench?
I like the ability to have two primary ball handlers on the floor, particularly with a team that comes aggressively, in the two-man game. Being able to play off of one another, being able to give the opponent some different looks, and quite frankly, for C specifically, not having to have her play under duress 94 feet the entire time she's on the floor. So there were some things that we liked about it. There are some things that we don't. So we'll continue to work.
Now, Hull had been crucial to this team's success. Her presence provided the spacing that allowed Clark to attack, her three-point shooting stretched defenses, and her on-ball defense was a stabilizing force. But when Stephanie White benched her, all of that disappeared in an instant. With Hull off the floor, the Fever lost their offensive identity. The Valkyries took full advantage, exploiting every breakdown and forcing the Fever into isolation-heavy possessions. The ball stopped moving, the offense stalled, and players were left forcing contested shots instead of generating clean opportunities. Everything that had made them click during their Commissioner's Cup run vanished, all because of one questionable lineup change.
she can give her different looks. It could turn into something beautiful. I'm excited to see both of them on the floor together because they can create shots for one another. But it didn't happen today. So you should have made the adjustments once the offense looked so stagnant, looked so lost, discoordinated. You should have went ahead and changed that. All right? You should have changed.
Even worse, White's baffling rotation decisions cut Clark's minutes just when the team needed her the most. It was her first game back from injury, yes, but the offense was flailing, the crowd was restless, and her presence alone could have reignited the team. Instead, every time Clark hit the bench, whatever momentum the Fever had completely evaporated. The offense sputtered, becoming a parade of forced, contested shots with no rhythm, no flow. Key shooters like Hull and Mitchell, who thrive off Clark's playmaking, were left stranded, their strengths neutralized. The ball movement vanished, the floor spacing collapsed, and the crisp, confident offense that carried them to the Commissioner's Cup? It looked like a distant memory.
What happened? The Fever? Slow it down! They get into the beautiful motion offense we've all been in love with since the start of the season. Oh, pass, screen away. Oh, what a thing of beauty. Pass, screen away. Oh my goodness. Did you see how Kelsey Mitchell just set that screen? Mwah! Magnificent. And the Valkyrie, Natalie Nakase, and the crew, they said, oh, now's our time to strike. So over the remainder of the first quarter, the whole entire second quarter, after being up 20-11 with 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go, the Golden State Valkyrie proceed to go on a 30-12 run for the next 13 minutes.
These weren't minor tweaks, they were seismic shifts that unraveled everything the Fever had built. Coach Stephanie White didn't just shuffle the lineup, she dismantled the team's identity. She benched Lexi Hull, a defensive anchor and floor spacer. She pushed Caitlin Clark out of her natural point guard role. And the offense crumbled under the weight of that confusion. But as bad as the on-court decisions were, White's post-game comments took things to a whole new level. Standing at the podium, eyes fixed on the cameras, she deflected blame entirely. No ownership. No reflection. Just a stunning public indictment of her players, leaving fans and analysts stunned. It wasn't just a bad loss, it was a leadership failure broadcast live.
Say we can do better than the motion offense when Caitlin Clark's on the bench. We can utilize Kelsey, we can utilize AB, we can utilize Aerie, we can do things. But no. Caitlin Clark was a decoy for many parts of this game. Majority of this game, dare I say. She didn't seem like a threat, other than when the ball was in her hands, which Stephanie White literally has a heart attack and says, no, Caitlin, no! Too many assists, stop! Too much facilitating, cut it out!
White said, I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. And she didn't stop there. She doubled down, criticizing her players' focus by adding, our attention to detail was poor. For a team that had just clawed their way through a tough stretch and delivered a championship without their star player, those words hit like a slap in the face. Instead of owning her own tactical missteps, shuffling lineups, misusing Clark, benching Hull, White turned the spotlight on the very players who had carried the franchise through adversity. It wasn't just deflection, it was disconnection, and it showed.
I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. With the exception of about 2 5-minute spurts. Our attention to detail was poor. I'm not sure if it's not knowing the game plan, as much as, because if it's not knowing the game plan, then that's a whole nother conversation, as much as not executing the game plan.
But here's the problem, Stephanie White took zero accountability for her own strategic failures. Not a word about benching Lexi Hull, despite the ripple effect it had on both offense and defense. No explanation for the bizarre McDonald experiment, which clearly threw off the team's rhythm and pushed Caitlin Clark out of position. Instead, White stood at the podium and acted as if her decisions had nothing to do with the loss. She pointed fingers at effort, attitude, and execution, but never once turned that mirror on herself. And that silence? It spoke volumes.
Attention to detail, undisciplined. I felt like our energy and our competitive fire was not there, and that's disappointing.
I guess, why do you think you had some of these inconsistencies when it comes to focus and engagement, things like that?
I'd say discipline more so than focus. I think this is a group that focuses. But you can focus, and then you have to be able to go out and be disciplined enough to execute it, right? I'm not sure. We're, as coaches, that's our job to figure it out. Why it is. You've seen it in spurts. You've seen it in moments. You've seen it with certain lineups. So for us, finding those lineups that we've seen it with consistently, and maybe keeping those together.
I think the Fever are getting very close to having to make a choice, and that is, do they want to build around Caitlin Clark, or do they want to force her into a system that limits everything that makes her special? That quote cuts to the core of what's unraveling in Indiana. On one side, you have Clark, mature beyond her years, publicly owning mistakes, speaking like a true leader, and showing she understands that winning in the WNBA demands consistency and focus. On the other, you have Coach Stephanie White deflecting, pointing fingers, and refusing to acknowledge the coaching decisions that clearly derailed the game. Clark didn't hide behind excuses. She admitted they failed to follow the scouting report. She said the players didn't execute. But she did it without blaming anyone. Her accountability stood in sharp contrast to White's deflection. More importantly, Clark emphasized growth, regrouping, and the urgency of every single game, comments that reflect a mindset ready to win. But here's the growing problem. Clark's free-flowing, read-and-react style doesn't mesh with White's rigid, control-heavy system. And the results are showing on the scoreboard. If the Fever want to fully unlock Clark's potential and build a championship-caliber team around her, they may have to re-evaluate not just their lineups, but their leadership. Because trying to fit a generational point guard into a system that doesn't suit her is a recipe for mediocrity, not greatness.
It doesn't take much. There's other ways. But to give up your defensive presence just to mitigate that? Come on, man. To give up your defensive presence, Lexi Hull, somebody who hustles to get rebounds, right? Hustles to get the rebounds. She had like 7 to 8 rebounds. 7 to 8 rebounds, man. We're going to look at the stats. But she was hustling.
Poor coaching decisions, lack of accountability, and a complete failure to understand how to use a generational talent. This wasn't just a bad night for the Indiana Fever, it was a meltdown that exposed everything wrong with the current system. Just last week, this team was on top of the world. They dominated the Las Vegas Aces, beat the Minnesota Lynx, and lifted their first Commissioner's Cup by playing to their strengths. Caitlin Clark commanding the floor at point guard, Lexi Hull spacing the court with her shooting, Aaliyah Boston dominating inside, and Kelsey Mitchell delivering in crunch time. But against the Valkyries, all of that vanished. Stephanie White benched Hull, forced Clark to play out of position at small forward, gave her limited minutes, and watched the offense fall apart, and then had the audacity to blame the players in the post-game press conference without acknowledging a single mistake of her own. Meanwhile, Clark showed more leadership than anyone, owning the team's struggles and calling for focus and improvement. This isn't just a clash of tactics, it's a philosophical war between a rigid, outdated system and a once-in-a-generation talent being wasted. If things don't change fast, Clark needs to go straight to the front office and say, either you build this team around me the right way, or I won't let you profit off my name anymore. Because at this rate, the Fever and the WNBA are fumbling the biggest opportunity they've ever had.
Our team, we have a lot of inconsistency. We raise to the occasion when we're playing for 30,000, and then we need to bring that level of focus and that level of energy every single day. It's really hard to win in this league, and I think, we need to focus every game because all of these games matter when September, October comes. So it's really just going to come to us, and we really need to regroup, turn the page, learn from this, and come with a better mindset.